He had just moved to Toronto. Why do you not live together? Cute. And it just made a lot of sense to do it that way. And I am just so happy. And then other times it's a complete disaster and it is the worst thing. 2 years after that, and I packed up everything. Happy Sunday. Oh my goodness, it's starting to feel a little bit more like home in here. I have a new lamp. Do you love it? Because I absolutely love it. I also need to do something with these flowers over here. They're not quite right. I think I need a new vase, maybe some more flowers or something, but it's just starting to feel a little bit more like home in here. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of an update video. I've noticed a lot of questions lately. There's a number of new people here, and so I asked on my channel page on YouTube and in my broadcast channel on Instagram what questions you would like some answers to, and so that's what we're going to do today. A little bit of an update. If you are new here, my name is Rachel. I just moved to Washington DC from Australia, and I'm in the process of setting up my new apartment and settling into my new life. So I'm going to apologize to my regular viewers who have been here for a while and probably know the answers to most of these questions, but I just want to do a little bit of a recap and catch everybody up to date. Okay, so first question is, why did you move to DC? My boyfriend lives in DC and I moved here to be with him. The second question is, how did you and your boyfriend meet? So we met on March 17th, 2022 at Duke's Refresher on Front Street East in Toronto. It's like a games little sports bar kind of thing. And we met on St. Patrick's Day. Hello, what are you doing? No, I'm okay. Where are you going to? Oh, you got me something. Cute. He's out getting groceries and he got me something. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited for it. Anyway, so where were we up to? How did we meet? Right. So St. Patrick's Day, March 2022, this was when we were both living in Toronto. He had just moved to Toronto, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but he's actually from Winnipeg, and he'd moved to Toronto to wait out the rest of his visa to move here to DC. So he used to live in DC years ago, and he was in Toronto waiting out to be able to move back to DC. Anyway, he grew up with some guys in my friend group. So when he came out that night, he met the rest of the friend group. He became a part of our friend group, and then we were friends for about a year before we started dating. And now it's been another year and we're here in DC. So I'm gonna give just like a little bit of an extra backstory. I moved to Toronto a number of years ago, and I was there for about 2 years, and then my visa was coming to an end at the end of 2022, and I packed up all of my stuff, moved out of my apartment, and I put all my stuff in storage. And a couple of videos ago, he and I went and emptied my storage locker, and we road tripped from Toronto down here to DC. So if you've not seen that video, I'll link it down below. But my plan was to then go and do a little bit of traveling. So I went back to Australia for a few months to just enjoy summer and everything. Then I went to Japan, then I went to Austin, Texas, and then I went back to Toronto, and then I was going to go to Europe for some of summer. But as soon as I got back to Toronto, we pretty much started dating, and my plans changed, and I ended up staying in Toronto for the summer. And pretty much straight after we start dating, he moves here to DC. So we go into a long distance relationship almost immediately. And I came down to visit a couple times last summer to get a feel for the city and sort of learn a little bit more and just to see him. Then in September last year, I went back to Australia to wait out the rest of my visa process. And that took 7 months. So we were in a full blown long distance relationship for 7 months. We didn't see each other for that time. And then 8 weeks ago, I was finally able to move to DC, and now I am here. So that's kind of the backstory of how we met and our relationship. The next question is, why do you not live together? Which I figured this question would come up a lot. So there's a number of reasons why we don't live together. And the first one is, we've only been in a relationship in person for 8 weeks, which is still kind of new. Like, we've been together for a year and we've known each other for 2 years, so we do have a pretty good foundation, but we've been pretty much long distance this entire time, and I have just moved to a new country, a new city, and I'm essentially being in a new relationship, and I just felt more comfortable having my own space to kind of get on my own 2 feet, have a little bit of independence, and just sort of settle into this whole new life, new city, new everything. And it just made a lot of sense to do it that way. Also too, I make YouTube videos and I share a lot of my personal life on the internet, and prior to this relationship, I was single for like 3.5 years. And it had been a really long time since I had had to navigate being in a relationship and having a personal life while also having a public life. You know, it's always just been me on my own, which makes it so much easier to share everything. I don't have to worry about invading someone else's privacy. And so moving here and having to navigate all of these new things and all of these new changes while also trying to figure out how to make my videos and being in someone else's space and trying not to invade their privacy messy. It just felt like a lot. And I figured if I had my own space, I could figure out the balance of everything, settle in a little bit more before we eventually move in together. And I figured that out. So that's kind of another reason why I have my own space. Plus, I haven't had my own space for a year and a half, and I love living alone, and I have wanted nothing more than to just have my own space to decorate and make pretty and organize, and I am just so happy that I'm able to do that. This is going to be the last time that I live alone, so I just wanted to enjoy that for a few months before we do decide to move in, and just enjoy settling in to DC kind of with my own space. That was just like the idea behind all of it. I know some people will go straight into long distance relationships and then they will move in together, and sometimes it works and it is the best thing that someone has ever done, and then other times it's a complete disaster and it is the worst thing that anyone has done. And so I just felt like if I was going to be making this major life move across the world into a new city, new country, new relationship, rather than making another major life move into moving in together, I could break that up by just sort of having my own space. So those are kind of the reasons why I have my own space for the moment, but eventually we will move in together. Next question is, how far away do you live from your boyfriend? We actually don't live too far away. It's about a 15-minute walk, which is why when he called me, he was nearby, because we kind of live, I guess, in the same area, and it's nice. I really like that he lives about that 15 minutes because it's enough for me to be able to get outside and actually walk, which means I can get my steps up. I mean, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch, but I like to track my little daily steps and set myself little goals. And so living that distance apart does make it really easy for me to get in those extra steps, but it also makes it easy that if I need to do something or swing by his place, maybe even more than once a day, I can, because it's not so far that it's such an effort. He's also not like right next door, which is kind of nice. So it's a really good dynamic, I think, like with how far away we live, and just it's a good distance. Next question is, how did you end up moving from Australia to Toronto originally? I think this might be a new follower. So originally, way back in the day, I used to live in Brisbane in Australia, and I made a friend, and she was Canadian and she was studying in Australia, and then eventually she moved back to Toronto, and in 2017 I went to visit her, and then I loved it a lot. I loved it so much that I was like, if my relationship ends, I am gonna move. And 2 years later, that relationship ended, and like a month or so after the relationship ending, I moved to Toronto. It was very fast, and I was only gonna go for a couple of months. I loved it so much. I stayed for 5. I started the visa process, and then I went back to Australia, Feb 2020, whole world shut down, and then I wasn't able to move back until the beginning of 2021. And then my visa ended 2 years after that, and I packed up everything end of 2022. And now, I guess, beginning of 2024, I moved to DC, and now I am here. And that's kind of the last few years timeline of how I got to where I am and all the different places I've been in the world. There's a number of questions kind of about our relationship, but there's also a lot of questions just about DC and living here in general. So I might wrap up the relationshipy questions. This is a great question, but a lot of questions have kind of been about this as well. But how has the transition been from long distance to face-to-face, merging 2 lifestyles together and continuing growing the relationship? It's really interesting, right? Because obviously it's quite a change. You go from FaceTiming each other and never seeing each other to seeing each other all the time. And because our relationship kind of started as long distance, there was a lot of stuff, I guess, we didn't really get to learn about each other until recently. Like, it's just the things like how you communicate, your behaviors, and that kind of thing that you learn about each other. And I'm not gonna lie and say it's been so easy, because it's a challenge for any relationship when the dynamic changes. But the one thing that I love about our relationship is that when we have like say miscommunications or things don't quite make sense, and it's like, but what did you mean? Because I'm interpreting B and you're sending A, which just happens all the time between all kinds of people. Someone's sending A, someone's receiving B, things get misinterpreted. And so as we're going through like learning the way that we communicate and the way that we do things, we just have a very easy way of navigating that. I don't know how to explain it. It takes a conversation. I don't know, just the way that we go about figuring things out and the dynamic of our relationship just is quite easy. So it's been really interesting to learn more about each other. And then I have noticed one thing that I am really happy about, and that is we have a friendship element to our relationship. And I mean, that possibly comes from the fact that we were friends before we started dating. But I remember years and years and years ago when I was in a relationship, I just remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I just want to have more of a friendship element. I just want to be able to do activities and things together and have fun. And I just didn't have that at the time. And now that I have that, I am just so thankful for it, because it's just one of those things that's really important to me in a relationship. And it's just so nice that we have that. And it's been really, really nice being in person. I don't think either of us would be interested in ever going back into long distance. I mean, we would have to do whatever you got to do, but like now that we're in person, it's just so nice. And we are like, good riddance to long distance. I've had a couple of questions asking about, whether he's going to be in videos or not. We're still navigating the balance of everything. We're giving ourselves a little bit more time to settle into our now in-person relationship. He said that he is comfortable to be on camera eventually, so he may pop up every now and then. I do not have any intentions of becoming like a vlogging couple or a family vlogging channel down the line. That's not really the vibe. I like to talk about organizing and cleaning and just kind of that whole gisting type stuff, and that's what I'm gonna keep my channel content to, but he will make the occasional appearance eventually. When he's ready, I don't wanna push anything on him. I wanna respect his privacy and his comfortability in front of the camera. I've been doing this for 14 years now. Being in camera feels very comfortable to me. I'm very used to sharing my personal life on the internet, but for a lot of people, that's not the normal. It's kind of a bit weird. And so I'm just gonna respect how he feels about it, and whatever he's comfortable with is what we will go with, I think that might be all of the sort of relationship-y type questions. I mean, there was a lot, but I think that kind of covers most of it. I do have a lot of questions just kind of about DC. I'm trying to find the very straightforward, here it is. How's life in DC so far? Simple question, and I like it. I am really enjoying being in DC. I think I'm enjoying being in the States, to be honest. I had a bit of difficulty getting myself set up here. If you've watched those vlogs, it was a lot to try to jump through all the hoops of getting a bank account, getting a credit card, social security, going to the DMV, like all of those things. It was a lot. But now that I've set up everything, I think the system here is so much more streamlined, and it just makes so much more sense, and everything is just so much more connectable once you take the time to actually connect everything. I did not have this many issues when I moved to Toronto. It was very straightforward, but in the long term, it felt like things were not as connected, a little bit more difficult. I don't know, it just made things a little bit more difficult in the long term. But anyway, I am settling in quite nicely. I like it here. It is so hot. The climate here is probably the warmest climate I've ever lived in. It's just gone summer, but we are having 38 degree days. I think it's 36 today. Yesterday was 38, which is in Celsius, which is, it was 100 yesterday in Fahrenheit, 90 something today. It's hot. So I'm gonna be wearing loose, flowy dresses all summer. I've had to purchase a couple more because I've been wearing these for multiple days in a row because I don't wanna wear anything else. And as sticky and as hot and as gross as it is, I love it. The warm, sunny weather just makes me so happy. And so I think I'm really going to enjoy living here climate-wise. And in winter, it will maybe snow 1 or 2 days of the season, but it does not get anywhere near as cold as what it does in Toronto or in Canada in general. And it's just quite a nice climate in my opinion. So I'm very happy about that. I've also had a number of questions about, my favorite things in DC so far. Honestly, I haven't really done anything. A lot of my energy in the last 8 weeks has just gone into, well, first of all, setting myself up. For the first month, it was the jumping through the hoops of the bank and the whole system here, which I eventually got. And then it's been, furniture hunting. I haven't been out to do a lot of touristy things. I mean, we did a bunch of touristy stuff when I first came down last year, but I need to do all the museums and all the art galleries, which I'm so looking forward to, but I've just not had a chance yet. Hopefully when I get a little bit more settled, maybe by mid to late July, I'll be able to start making some time for some more fun activities. But right now, everything has just been going to making my videos and getting my apartment set up, which is super boring, I know, but yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to go and explore and do some things. There is one restaurant that I think is amazing. It is a Swiss place. I cannot remember what the name of it is. It's on H Street East, and it's supposed to be a fondue place, but they realized that in summer, fondue is probably not something a lot of people want to eat, so they switched up their menu. They have a new summer menu, and they're doing steak frites, and it is amazing. We actually bought a little scoop of their butter to go, and I have been having it on my eggs in the morning, and I ran out this morning, which is so upsetting. So I need to go back and get some more. And I think it's amazing. If I can remember the name of it, I'll link it in the description. But that's one of my favorite places I've been to so far. But there's a lot for me to explore, and I've had so many suggestions, which is amazing. So thank you. Another lot of questions I keep getting are about sort of the differences between the US and Canada and Australia. And let's see, I would say the system in Canada is much easier to get set up. You can walk into a bank and be like, hey, I'm new here. Here's my visa. Can I please have a bank account? And they're like, sure, here's your bank account, and you walk out. Here, you need to prove an address to get a bank account, but I needed a bank account to get an address, and it is a whole like system. And then I had to get my manager to prove my address on my behalf. And then apparently that wasn't acceptable by the credit card department. So then I had to get my lease, but then they didn't even take my lease. And then I had to get an ID, and it was a whole thing. It's a very, very complicated system here to get set up. But as I was saying before, I feel like once it's set up, everything is just interconnected and it makes sense. And I like that. What else are the differences? Okay, so really interesting difference. I think deli meat here has a lot more preservatives in it than in Australia, because if I go to the deli in Australia and I buy, say, turkey breast, it's gonna be off in like 3 days. Here, it will last like a month and a half, which is insane to me. I have never seen deli meat last so long. I think that's something that I kind of knew. Like, people tend to say the food quality here in the US is not that great. I'm still like learning. I don't know if I could say one way or the other. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I thought that was really interesting. The used by date on a lot of products here seems to be a lot longer than what they are in Australia. Another difference would be, I would say here and maybe Melbourne, everything seems a little on par price-wise. Toronto is expensive. Toronto is very expensive. Food is very expensive there. I like to shop at Trader Joe's here, which I think is great. I think it's a good price. It seems priced very reasonable. I mean, everything is expensive these days, right? Like, just, it's awful. I hate it. But I would say Melbourne and DC are a little more on par with Toronto being a bit more expensive. I've also had a couple of questions about feeling homesick and missing my family and stuff. I don't get homesick very often. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and I had never planned to stay in my hometown. I was always going to leave. So when I was 18, I left, and I had to move far away from my hometown, which means for 16 years now, I have been living very far away from my family, and I am very, very used to it. So I don't get homesick that often, but when I do, I just like to talk to my friends or my family, maybe call them. I think that's a good way to sort of deal with it when I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable, but it's not something that I feel very often because I am so used to it, because I've always had to live really far away from home. What is something that Australians do in their apartment setup that Americans usually do not do? And this also goes, like, it's a North American thing, it's both a Canadian and American thing, but white goods are included here. White goods is a term to describe like your washer, your dryer, your fridge, your like that kind of stuff. In Australia, you buy your own washing machine and your dryer and your fridge, and you move with them, even in apartments, unless it's the off chance that it's a newer apartment complex and they have built-in refrigerators and things like that. But in Australia, we move with them. They don't just stay in the place like they do here. So that makes, I don't even know if I'm making sense right now. Every apartment, every house you go into already has a washer and dryer. You don't have to take them with you when you move, if that makes sense. But in Australia, you do. And I like the system here. I think it's so much better not to have to move them, because they're bulky items and they can be really difficult to move, and they're very expensive. And if they get broken in transit, that's kind of annoying. So I like that about the way the system works here for living. Another question is, did you bring some big things from Australia to DC, or did you just sell them and buy it new? So I no longer have any big things in Australia. Back at the beginning of 2020, Australia was on fire, and sadly we lost our family home in the fires. And so when I went back to Australia in 2020 and I was getting ready to move here in 2021, I actually took all of my all of my furniture that I had in Australia, and I gave it to my mum to furnish the new house, because she rebuilt in the same place. So all of my furniture that I had in Australia is at my mum's house. It's hers now. I still have my bed and everything, which if you go back and watch my videos from when I was home, we kind of use it as a spare bedroom, although for the time that I was living there for 7 months, it was my bedroom, but now it'll be just the guest bedroom. And so I left all of that there. I have a few pieces of clothing still in the closet, but outside of that, I pretty much took everything with me to Toronto, and most of my belongings were in Toronto, and we brought them down. When I left Toronto though, I wasn't sure where I was going to move afterwards. I could have very well have moved back to Australia. So I actually sold everything. In hindsight, I'm a little bit annoyed about that because I could have just used it to furnish this apartment, but I didn't know, right? And so I just got rid of anything that I didn't have some sentimental attachment to, or something that I didn't really need, and then the rest went into storage, and then I was able to move that down here. So there wasn't really anything big for me to move to this place, which is why kind of purchasing new furniture and setting all of the bigger items up. I've also had a couple of questions about getting a car. I don't have a car. My boyfriend has a car. I have driven on the other side of the road. I drove when I was in Austin last year, and I've driven like a little bit since being here. As much as I would love to get a car, I don't have any money to buy a car. I've spent all of my money on my visa and moving, and so getting a car is just not on the cards right now. Hopefully one day I can, but DC is a very walkable city. I think the public transport's quite great. I've either walked everywhere that I want to go, or I jump on the subway, or I take a bus, and I like it. It's very easy for me to get around, and if I do need to get out of town or do anything, I can just ask my boyfriend to take me. So I don't really need a car, maybe one day, but for the moment I won't be getting one. I am just going through the last of the questions. I feel like I've answered the majority of the main ones, like the repeat questions. I did see a couple asking me, where in the States am I excited to visit? I haven't been to New York, so that's like at the top of the list. I'd also like to go to Boston. I'd probably like to go down to Florida. I've only transited through the airport there, so I'd like to go to Florida. Definitely want to go back to Austin. I absolutely love it there. It's one of my favorite places. I don't know, there's just so many places I would like to go. There's a lot of places I would like to do that are sort of more within driving of DC. Like I've been out to West Virginia, Maryland, because you know, you kind of, when you live here, you end up in Virginia and Maryland because it's all so close and together. But I'd like to go out to Delaware. I haven't done that yet. I think I would like to maybe go up northeast when it's autumn. I think that would be really, really beautiful. And I don't know, I just want to go everywhere. There's so many places I want to go and things that I want to see. So I'm really excited to explore more of the States. I really like being here. I'm very happy. I feel like I'm very in my element here. And yeah, I've just been really, really enjoying it so far. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here because I have been talking for quite a while, and I don't wanna make this video too long. I'm really sorry if I missed your question. If you have anything that you really wanna know, feel free to DM me on Instagram and I will message you back. But yeah, that's kind of the update, kind of the backstory for everybody that's new here. Also, welcome, thank you for being here. And yeah, I'm loving it here. I feel like everything is going so well, to be really honest with you. I think there's a part of me that almost feels a little bit afraid to enjoy it and afraid to really just ease in and just like, I don't know, let all the good things unfold, because I don't know, I just haven't had so many good things consecutively happen all at once before. Someone said, I think back in January, it's like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it's so true. I just am like, something's gonna go wrong. Like, am I really able to enjoy it? And I need to let that go, because I have to enjoy it. I have to enjoy this fabulous weather that I love so much. I have to enjoy how great our relationship is and how we're in person again and it's not long distance, and just enjoy my new apartment and the decorating and everything. I just have to release the control a little bit and just start to enjoy it. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you're having a fabulous weekend, and I will see you very, very shortly. Real quick, I have to show you the little gift that my boyfriend picked up for me. He got me a mug to add to my collection, and it says Washington DC was so expensive I could only afford half a cup, which is so funny. It is quite pricey here, but I still stand by what I said before. I still think Toronto is more expensive. Anyway, this is so cute. I'll have to wash it and add it to my little collection. Also, I've just been editing up the video, and there's one question that I have to answer. It's a very, very important question, and that is, did my boyfriend end up getting a remote for his TV? There is a whole thread about this question, and he did. He went to Best Buy the next day on his way home from work, and he got a remote for his TV. But I showed him the thread of comments on that one question, and he thought it was absolutely hilarious. He had a really good chuckle at that, so thank you for giving him some entertainment. But very important question. Yes, he did indeed get a remote for his new TV. Also, I noticed there's a lot of other questions I didn't really answer today, and for that I'm very, very sorry. Maybe I can answer them in an upcoming video, and again, if you want to just DM me and ask me a question directly, you can do that as well. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you very shortly.